What's going on, guys? Max's Dioramas here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make the D-Day Diorama that I had made previously on a other video I have on my channel. So what we're going to do is we are going to start with a good board base. Usually I like to use plywood or something similar, something cheap, just because we're not going to be able to see it anyway underneath the foam. So what we're going to want to do is grab a piece of styrofoam, is what I just have here, and we're going to take it to the bandsaw and cut it at an angle here for the angle of the beach. Now you notice here the piece I'm gluing with my wood glue is not the same piece that I put on. I did not unfortunately record the piece that I had, so we're just going to show you how to apply the glue on the back of this styrofoam piece here. So what we're going to want to do is spread it out with our glue brush here. Then we're going to want to slap it onto the plywood board and use something heavy. I just got a heavy box here with a circular saw in it, just anything to weigh it down for the night until it dries. Alright, once the foam has dried to the plywood, we are going to start working on the tank trap on the beach. That's made out of just some small pieces of wood here that I have. And we're going to be cutting the pieces of wood to about 8 inches in length. Once we have done that, we're going to split them down the middle with our bandsaw, so that way we can glue them in an L shape. Now that kind of gives us the look of the tank trap. And in a minute, you're going to see how the tank trap turns out. So after we have cut the pieces of wood, we're going to take them over and just use a hand sander to kind of smooth out the pieces of wood. And we're going to go on the flat top and the edges to make sure everything is looking nice. And before we start gluing, we're going to go over to our drawer here and get some mini clamps. And we're also going to be using our trusty wood glue again. And so what we're going to be doing is putting a thin bead on one of the pieces of wood and placing the other piece of wood on its side onto the bead of glue. We're then going to take our mini clamps and clamp them real tight, make sure everything's lined up straight. And once we have that situated, we're going to let it dry overnight. And we're just going to repeat the process for all the other pieces of the tank trap. Once all of the pieces have dried, we're going to start gluing them all together in the tank trap formation. So we're just going to put a little dot of glue here, and as you can see, we're going to put it in the tank trap formation and use all of our mini clamps, making sure they're straight and perpendicular to each other. And once again, we are just going to let this dry overnight. As you can see here, our tank trap turned out pretty well. Just test fitting it here onto the diorama with our figure. Now we're just going to add a little bit of detail to the tank trap by taking just a piece of thin sheet of foam here, and we're going to cut the corners off to glue onto the edge of our tank trap here. So I'm just pushing into this foam to make these dimples so it's easy to know where to cut on the corners. I'm just going to take a scissors here, cut off the corners. We might need to do a little bit of trimming here to make sure that things line up a little bit better. And once we have done that, we're just going to take a little bit of our Loctite glue and just put some on the edges of our tank trap here. And then we're going to take our triangles that we had cut out and very gently put them on the corners. Now that should dry fairly fast. So once we have put all the triangle corners on all of the ends, we're just going to use some of our acrylic paint here. I am using a burnt umber for color. And we're just going to start taking our paintbrush and painting the wood of the tank trap to make it look more like a rusted steel. And once that is done, we're going to take our Sculpting. Now Sculpting is like a plaster just to give the ground more of a texture, more like a ground texture to make things look definitely more realistic. Now I like to use Sculpting because it is very easy to work with and is fairly cheap. So what we're going to do is we're going to just simply add water to our little bowl of Sculpting we have here, and I usually just go by a rough estimate of how much water. I'll start with a little less water than I think, start mixing it up, seeing if I need to add more or not. This right now seems like it has just enough water, and you'll want to get it mixed well till it's about a thick paste texture. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take our high-tech plastic spoon here and just start pushing it around the diorama to give the ground more texture than just with the plain foam and flat board. Now I'm also going to get some of the plaster banked up where the tank trap meets the foam, just to make sure that that tank trap stays in place nicely. Now I'm also leaving a small hole in the plaster where the soldier's foot is going to go as he's storming the beach. And we'll also build the plaster up a little bit onto his foot to also help secure the soldier's foot into the sand. Now we're going to head over to the 3D printer, and I am using a Monoprice Select Mini, and we're going to go to Kira, which is the slicer that I use. I already have it scaled to the size that I would like for 1/6 scale, and we're just going to start printing. I am using a wood and plastic filament mix that makes it easier to paint. Okay, our ammo box has finished printing. We are just going to remove it from the build plate and bring it over and paint it up. So I am using a olive green acrylic paint, and we're just going to paint the ammo box here and place it onto our diorama. Now, I forgot to make a hole originally for the ammo box, so we're just going to use an X-Acto knife to cut out the correct size for our 3D printed ammo box. And we're just going to get all the plaster and foam out so we are able to correctly fit our ammo box in. And I'm just going to use a little bit of wood glue to make sure that our ammo box stays nice and snug. This is supposed to give it the appearance of being buried in the sand as they're storming the beach. And now, once that is done, we are ready to start putting our sand on. So first we're going to have to use Mod Podge and just use an old brush that I had laying around to spread a thick layer of Mod Podge over the whole diorama, so that way our sand will stick nicely to the surface. We're just going to make sure we get every little crease and corner here. Then I'm just going to place a diorama on an old tablecloth or anything that will easily pick up any sand that falls off the diorama. So we're just going to take our sand here and spread a thick layer all over. And once that is complete, we're going to use our hand just to spread some of the sand under the soldier. Once the glue has dried and the sand is put in place, we're going to use Woodland Scenic's Realistic Water, and we're just going to use some blue painter's tape to tape around the edge so that way we don't have any leaks with our Realistic Water resin. So we're going to start pouring a layer in, and we're going to pour this about 1/8 of an inch thick just so it covers his boots. And I'm also going to be using a lighter to get rid of some of the bubbles in our Realistic Water. Now for this next part, I apologize, I never recorded it when I originally made this diorama, but I'm still going to show you guys how I made the wave for the diorama. I just took some clear caulk that I had laying around and put a nice thick line kind of where his boot is lined up in the water, and just use the plastic spoon again to kind of shape the caulk in a wave fashion, and then allowed that to dry just to give us that appearance of the water moving and crashing up onto the sandy beach. And again, we're going to give that about 24 hours to fully cure. And there is our completed D-Day diorama of our American soldiers storming the beaches of Normandy. Well, there you have it, guys, for my first tutorial video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you could all like, comment, and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Look for more tutorial videos in the near future, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.